Hi, hello, Mr. Adam. How are you doing today?
Hey, Idar, pretty good. How are you?
Good, thank you. So thank you for joining our educational international interview. Are you ready to start?
Yeah, sure.
Adam, the first question will be about your educational philosophy and how do you see teaching in general?
Well, I guess my educational philosophy, it kind of comes from when I was a kid in school. I was always pretty advanced for my age compared to a lot of my peers, and I often felt kind of bored in class. And so my goal as a teacher is to make sure that every student is being pushed at whatever level they currently are. And so I have very high standards, and my standards kind of change over time as well. So as students get more, advanced or used to my style, then I'll push them even harder. And so for me, it's really all about really high expectations. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I think the next question will be about your vision of the professional teacher. So how do you see that? What's the ideal model of being that?
I guess it's kind of counterintuitive, but I see the ideal teacher as a teacher who doesn't really. I'm a high school teacher, a teacher who doesn't really care that much about their content area. That they're more interested or more they seeking more to get students to develop important skills that they can take with them. So, like for example, I teach secondary math. I might be teaching calculus or something to my students. And for most people, they're not using calculus in their daily lives. It's not something that's super important for them to absolutely know. I don't personally think calculus is that important for every individual to know. However,
I don't even remember what it is, but yeah.
yeah, exactly, right. And so, however, the kind of critical thinking skills or problem solving skills that you develop when you're learning calculus, or perseverance, or those kind of like attributes that you might have to develop in order to learn it, those are the things that I really value. And so, me as a math teacher, I don't do it because I love math. I do it because I want kids to develop those skills, and I train them through mathematics. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. I see.
Yeah.
I see your vision now, Mr. Adam. So the next question is about the professional goals as a teacher. Do you have professional goals for maybe did you have them for the last year and for this year that makes you and motivates you and pushes you go through this teaching process?
I guess I see it kind of in two ways. Like in the first way, our school requires us to have some sort of professional growth goal that we've developed. And usually, to be honest, I don't find they're that good. I mean, it's kind of something that I feel like it's a bit like checking a box to make sure that I do what they tell me to do. And then there are kind of the goals that I have implicitly or internally for myself. And so for me, I'm always trying to think of ways of teaching things clearer, or um, getting kids to push their thinking even more. How can I, as a teacher, create differentiated tasks so that a student who gets the general idea, like how can they take it and run with it? And that's kind of my goal, every year. It's not something that I write on a piece of paper for the principal, but it's kind of, what I do for myself. And to give an example, I mean, I have some grade 10 students. They had an option to do a project or a test, and I let the kids write their own projects for grade 10. Like, so they had to come up with their own idea of how they're going to do a math project on a certain topic. And it isn't for every student, but these couple of students, I mean, if they were just doing the normal test, they would have been bored in class. And now they're actively working, really asking questions, even though they're well beyond where I would expect they should be. So, yeah.
I see that you really care about your students, Mr. Adam, and you're a professional teacher, as you said. Um,
Try to be.
I think that we all, but in just in different vision. So do you consider yourself a successful leader or teacher then? Now that's the next question.
I mean, I guess it depends on how you define success. I mean, I don't know if my students in general, on the whole, are performing any better because they've had me versus some other teacher. I like to think that the students that I teach, that I've pushed their thinking and exposed them to viewing problems in a different way. And in that sense, yeah, I suppose I am fairly successful as a teacher. As a leader, I don't know. I mean, I have a little more experience with the middle years program IB than some of my colleagues do. And so I'm always there to help them as well. So maybe in that sense, it's good leadership. I mean, it takes a little bit of the burden off of my fellow teachers, when they're trying to learn all these new, ways of doing things. So yeah, I guess I'm marginally successful, maybe we'll say.
I'm sure that you are, Mr. Adam, and it's great that we always learn from each other, and it's great that you are involved in that process. So now let's talk about your classroom now. How will you describe your classroom management style and any system that you deal with the discipline management things with the students? Anything that happens, how do you react?
I tend to. My classroom management style is kind of funny. I'm a very lax student or teacher when it comes to student behaviors. So if I see a student that's off task, I'll remind them that they should be working, but I'm not going to, escalate it or send them to the principal or call their mom or anything like that. For me, I think there will be a natural consequence, and it will be a failing score on an assessment, for example, and then their parents are going to see their low scores, and then hopefully things will get better. So for kind of misbehaviors, that's kind of my style. I feel like I'm not their parent, and I'm there to teach, these life skills. And one of them is that they learn to self-regulate. That being said, in my classroom, I have a lot of students that are doing different things. So like I was describing those several students that were working on their own project or whatever, they're off in the corner working on something. And then I'm working with these other students in another way. And then maybe the lower students have some kind of a easier or, more differentiated task for them. And if I see kids that aren't working, I mean, it's kind of funny. The kids look around and they see all the other kids working, and that's kind of already a bit of a motivator in and of itself. So all you got to do is kind of compare them to their peers, and then they say, "Oh, okay, I better get back to work." But no, I kind of let the grades speak for themselves. And generally, it's been, at least in international teaching, students are a little bit better than when I was teaching in public schools. Like those things sort of work themselves out, I find.
I see. Thank you for your answer, Mr. Adam. I'm an elementary school teacher, and I think that the management styles will be different in a high school and elementary, right? And
absolutely, yeah. It's a different job entirely, primary versus secondary, totally different job.
Yeah, I see. So when you teach, when you deal with the students, when you're at school, actually, what questions you always ask yourself? Like a question that you always have in your mind and that track your work.
I guess it would probably be, what is essential here? What is the important thing that I want my students to get out of this? What's the thing that they're going to take with them, if that makes sense? Like, I don't know. I'm sure that most of my students in a couple of years will have forgotten how to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. Like, that's a skill that I teach, but that they will probably forget. So that's, to me, not the essential. I'm thinking, so what is it that's most important here? And trying to find ways of getting rid of some of these things that are kind of not that important, and trying to focus on that thing that's essential.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm sure. I'm sure. What's the priority here, and what you should do most of the important thing? Yeah, I see that.
And usually those priorities are things that they're more like transfer skills. They're more like self-discipline skills, or for example, if a student asks me a question, I rarely answer their question. I usually answer their question with another question. So if they say, how do I solve this problem? I might say, well, how would you find out how to solve this problem? Oh, maybe I could YouTube a video on how to solve it. And I'm like, well, there you go. So for example, I could teach you how to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. Do you remember how to do that, Idar?
I hope so. I hope so. Don't
But
ask
if
me
you
about it,
didn't,
but don't ask me.
but if you didn't, you know, you as a educated man would say, oh, maybe I just look it up on YouTube or on Google or whatever and get my answer. So for me, yeah, I could give them the answers, but it's more important that they develop the practice of finding the answers for themselves. So I'm more of a guide than a teacher, maybe.
That's an interesting approach. Maybe I should try with my students though. I'm not sure how it will work. Maybe I have to get with my own style. I see.
Yeah, everybody's different, and that's even better for the students too. If they have a teacher like me in one class, they might not want it in all 6 of their classes. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Adam. It was very interesting conversation about the teaching and your teaching style, actually. Now let's go back to school. So usually, I mean, international school. How do you see the ideal place that will suit for everyone, for teachers, students, and parents? And how do you see from the organization side, from the leadership, from the teachers, from the colleagues, coffee, tea? So just how the school should operate, how it should work.
It's really hard to please everyone. It's very difficult to please everyone. Myself, I have very high standards for my students, and I don't really, I don't like to hear excuses about why students didn't achieve something. Like other teachers are a lot more attuned to the emotional needs of their students. And it's good to have that mix, but to try to like kind of bridge that gap is difficult. I would say the best thing for a school is to give teachers as much autonomy as you can. So if you're a teacher who your style is to build really close relationships, you know, interpersonal relationships with your students, and that's the way that you get to them, teachers should be able to do that. If you're more of the type that is very, you know, high standards in terms of content and the kids need to come to you for a class or two for those students, that's fine. And hopefully we can let that teacher work in the way that they're comfortable in. Where I think a lot of schools get into trouble is when they try to have a kind of standard way that all teachers are supposed to be, because everybody has a different kind of personality, comfort level with social skills and these kind of things. Everybody's different. And so we should try to embrace that difference rather than try to get everyone to be the same. And so a lot of principals, you know, they recognize that and they kind of get out of the teacher's way. That's an ideal situation for me. But a lot of principals, on the other hand, that I've had over the years as well, they're a bit more like looking over everything that you're doing and kind of micromanaging. And I find that that's not a really great recipe for a happy teacher. And frankly, if teachers are happy, students are a lot more likely to be happy as well. So I don't know. As far as building premises, what does a school building look like? I mean, when we were working together, that school, it was really beautiful school. The classrooms were amazing. The setup was really nice, and it really kind of, I like when it kind of blurred the lines between classroom and outside of the classroom in some interesting ways that I feel is really good. So trying to get people to mix together, get people like, you know, science and math teacher or science and a social studies teacher talking together, working together more. Like, I don't know, that to me, that's what a really strong school would look like.
I see. Thank you. Thank you for your vision, Mr. Adam. I think there is something to think about, definitely. But the ideal place is always you trying to reach to that, right? You trying to go in that direction and try to be there. But that's why it's ideal. I hope that we will work in ideal schools and everything will be fine. Now, I'm interested in the self-management skills. So that's my personal question. How do you manage between school and the family? So how do you take work home, or do you just finish at, let's say, at 4 o'clock, and that's it? You close your mind, you're not thinking about that even, and you're at home and with your routines and what responsibility.
Generally speaking, I don't do any work at home. So if I have a big stack of tests to grade and I only get through a few, I leave it on my desk at work. I'll get to it tomorrow or the next. If it takes me 2 or 3 more days to grade something, I'll take 2 or 3 more days. It's okay. For me, I really do value my time away from school. To me, I'm at school from 7:45 to 4:15 every day. To me, that's enough of my life that I've dedicated to that part of my life. And so that doesn't mean that school doesn't make its way into the home. Like, my wife and I, we talk about work, when we're at home together. But generally speaking, I'm not doing planning or grading or anything like that at home. I kind of work to play rather than the other way around. So like for me, it's a job. I enjoy the job and I dedicate myself fully when I'm at work, but I don't want to be bothered with emails and questions and things to do when I'm off the clock, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah, I see. Because you have to be fresh and energized next day, right? You have to be ready. And if you're always there, you might be, there's a term, burning, right? When teachers start.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a lot of friends that, they were the sort of type where they're going to go home and they've got a list of 10 parents they're going to email and they're going to do all this stuff and they have all this planning and grading to do and this and that. And then those people all left the profession years ago because they just couldn't continue at that level of intensity forever. I mean, yeah, it's better for a student for me to be healthy myself. I'm better able to help them if I'm feeling good myself. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I think I have to think about this and learn, because I still can manage work and my own time. Sometimes it's all the work, but it's fine. It's fine. Now let's talk about the culture. So being an international teacher, usually they like the expat teachers, right? They always travel to different cultures. Have you ever had a chance to experience a cultural shock or something that you say, oh, these things are different completely. So it's not, okay, I'll do this way. So something, one story that you can share with us.
Actually, as a child, I moved around the world. So I've always kind of been used to living in different, places with different cultures. I was born in Japan. I lived in Africa for a number of years. Like as a kid, I moved around. So I'm pretty much used to that. If anything, I find that what's worse is reverse culture shock, which means I know if I'm going to Russia that there are certain Russian cultural values. I'm going to have to, speak the language, these kind of things. And I sort of mentally prepare for that. But when you go back home and you visit your high school friends and they're all still doing the same stuff that they were doing before and living the same lives that they were living before, you've had all these kind of amazing experiences. Going back home, it's kind of like you've changed, but that place hasn't. And I find that's maybe a more difficult feeling. Going to another country abroad, you're kind of excited to experience this new culture and the new things, maybe learning a new language or eating different food or that kind of stuff. I sort of look forward to it and I'm excited to do that. But then going back home and nobody else kind of, has had that experience, it's really weird. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, definitely. But for me, I think I experienced one, right? For me, the first year was difficult. So I missed home. I think that it's natural for the first year. But later on, I think, yeah, I'm not on that level yet, quite not. But I think that in the future. Recently I had an interview with a teacher, international teacher. And at the end, I asked him, what question I should ask? What do you think? What should I improve? And he said, ask about the teaching in their home country. So that's the question now. Would you teach in your home country if you have a chance?
I did for 2 years, and that was enough. I'll never teach there again. It's much more work. The working conditions are terrible. You have way more students in your classrooms. There's a lot more legal ramifications to the things that you do in your classroom, especially around special education. You have a lot of IEP meetings and things. It's so stressful trying to manage all of that. It's much easier to teach internationally, much easier. And
I
then
see.
of course the pay is better as well, so that doesn't hurt either. But no, I wouldn't go back to teaching. If I went back home, I would change professions probably.
Oh, all right. Who will you be? Like,
Believe it or not, I would probably be a piano tuner.
wow. Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I love to play music, and there's actually a need for piano tuners in the United States. There aren't that many of them that are trained to do it. They get pretty good money, and then they have a lot. They kind of build their own schedule, have a lot of time for themselves, which would be nice. Kind of run your own business, that sort of thing.
Maybe I should think about that too, just in case. All right. Thank you. I'll put that in my list. I look for it. So, Mr. Adam, you're an experienced teacher, right? And have you ever thought of being principal, director, maybe, or any leadership position? Or are you going to do that in the future, or not? Or you're good with the students? What do you think?
I've had quite a few years of MYP experience, and actually our MYP coordinator, the curriculum coordinator, is leaving this year. And I did think about applying for that job at our school. But then I got to thinking about it, and I don't know. I don't want the extra headache. I guess as it is now, like as a teacher, I just have administration that's kind of, bearing down on me from this direction. But now if I'm the coordinator, I've got the teachers over here that are angry at me. I got the administrators over here that are angry, and I'm sort of in the middle, right? I don't think I'd want that. Plus, you lose all the classroom contact time, which is kind of the fun part of the job anyway. So, I mean, maybe slightly better pay, but to me, it isn't worth the extra stress, and I'd have to learn a whole new job. I feel like now I'm just starting to get good at what I do, and so now to learn a whole new job would be kind of, I don't know, a bit aggravating.
Thank you, Mr. Adam. Mr. Adam, I have only 2 questions left. So one of it, what's your advice to a green, fresh teacher who just stepped inside that expat life, international teaching, maybe me? So just in case, all right? What's your advice, just in general, about teaching, maybe life at school?
I mean, I guess in different contexts, I guess it depends. If you're thinking about yourself as a teacher, number one is to really get to know the other teachers at your school. For example, when we were in Russia, there was another math teacher that came to the school. He was very experienced. I really learned a lot from him. And so as many professional development workshops that I went to or did online, like I didn't really get anything out of that. I got a lot out of learning from my fellow colleagues. So they're sort of a wealth of knowledge and experience in that way. The other piece, of course, is to have other interests besides school, because we're not robots or machines that we're not just teaching 24 hours a day. You have to kind of have something else that you're interested in, that you live for, or that you want to do. So that way you yourself are an interesting person, because otherwise the students won't be interested in you if all you are is a teacher to them, I guess.
Yes, I agree. When they see that teacher are from different sides, are very developed, and they are trying to reach out that level too. They see, oh, I would like to be like that, or something like that.
Yeah.
Just imagine myself when I was a child. Yeah, thank you. I will write down that advice. And
one other piece of advice is to get some sleep sometimes. It's a lot, especially for a first year teacher. You're kind of planning lessons and those kind of, those sorts of things. It's a lot of work. Just try to, at a certain point, turn it off and get some rest, because otherwise you'll burn out.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the last question, Mr. Adam, any book or movie that you are going to suggest or recommend to us, like and maybe viewers, about teaching, education, school that you came across before and you would like to share with us?
I guess not maybe necessarily about education, but I'm very much a philosophy fan of philosophy, and I find that the Stoics, for example, the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, where he kind of gives some concrete ways of thinking that you can take into your life, is a really good book, just so that you can learn how to focus on what's essential at that moment, because a lot of times as teachers we get pulled in these different directions and we lose focus of what's important. So yeah, I would say probably that's one. I don't know, there are a lot of good philosophy books that I find help guide my thinking. I don't know. Being in Nothingness by Jean-Paul Sartre is pretty good, but they're not exactly an easy read, though. That's the problem. But
I'll write it down and check. So maybe I will share. Maybe that will be our second interview about the book. So,
yeah, but if you're interested, you can go on YouTube on Philosophies for Life is the name of the channel, and he kind of gives a Cliff's Notes version of these different philosophical ideas that you can help take into your practice. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I will try. Thank you so much, Mr. Adam. Thank you so much. I think that was a great conversation. I personally learned a lot from our, and I will look through it again. And thank you so much for your time. I appreciate that. So anything else you would like to share with us? Maybe just last couple of minutes.
I guess the one thing is for any teachers out there is just to be yourself. The kids really respond to you when you are yourself, when you're not trying to be something you're not. And if you can bring your own personality, your own style into the classroom, they really appreciate that, and they'll remember you for it, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adam. Thank you for joining Educational International interview. We appreciate your time, and I hope that see you in the next interview, right?
Yeah, sure. Anytime.
Yeah. Thank you so much and have fun. Goodbye.
Bye.